Hello, my lovely anatomists and physiologists. Thank you for joining me for Anatomy and Physiology Part 2. We are getting started here where we left off with Anatomy and Physiology Part 1. So we are still in our Chapter 14, focusing in on Module 14.1 of the free OpenStax Anatomy and Physiology textbook. Let's begin here by talking or reminding ourselves about senses as being part of the afferent, or you can pronounce that afferent, division of the nervous system. This is, of course, the division that's collecting sensations from the body and transmitting it to the central nervous system for processing. CNS, remember, includes the brain and the spinal cord. So we have some sensations that are interpreted, processed at the brainstem and spinal cord level, and these are going to be outside of our conscious awareness. Any sensation we are consciously aware of is being processed at the cerebrum. We left off talking in Chapter 14 about general senses. And when we talk about general senses, remember, we have either just free nerve endings, or we could talk about the encapsulated ending, which is going to actually increase sensitivity. So here we're basically talking about a specialized portion of the sensory neuron, that dendrite, that's collecting this information. Remember, we talked about special senses as touch, which you could differentiate here between crude touch and fine touch. We included vibration, pressure. We included proprioception and kinesthesia as well. So these are all our different general senses. When we're talking about the specialized sense, remember, we're going to have a complex anatomical structure that's going to be important in actually getting then the specialized receptor cell stimulated. And so as we investigate our special senses, of course, we're going to go into the details of the complex anatomical structure, and we're going to be focusing in on those receptor cells as well. When we talk about receptor cells, we're going to see there are 3 different classifications that we'll be working with. So we have receptor cells classified as chemoreceptors. We have specialized receptor cells that are classified as mechanoreceptors. And then our last category is called a photoreceptor. If we go back up to chemoreceptor, it's a chemical that is going to be able to stimulate that cell. And so we will see 2 of our special sensations having chemoreception. We'll see olfaction, which is our sense of smell, and we'll see gustation, which is our sense of taste. When we talk about mechanoreception, there is going to be a physical movement that's required that will stimulate or sometimes inhibit the cell. And we're going to see this in hearing, or you can call that audition. We're going to see this in gravity and linear acceleration. And we're going to see it in rotation. Rotation is talking about really the position of your head in space. The photoreceptors are located in the eye, and they're going to be stimulated by photons. Photon is a particle / wavelength of light. And we'll see then photoreceptors are important in detecting vision. As we go through each of these special senses in more detail, let's take a look at the type of information we're going to be collecting. So I have presented here a chart for you, and you might want to organize all of your notes for all of chapter 14.1 in this type of a table, giving yourself quite a bit of space, or maybe use this as a review sheet at the end of all of the presentations. So we'll kind of come back to this throughout. So we have 7 rows and 5 columns. And when we look at our column headings, the first row is labeled special sense. So each of these rows is labeled based on the special sense, and we've just listed those. So this would include olfaction, gustation, hearing, gravity and acceleration, rotation, and vision. And then as we go to our column headers, after our special sense, we have our sense organ. So each time we're going to be going into the details of the anatomy of the sense organ. We have a column headed type of receptor cell. So that's looking at whether it is chemoreceptor, mechanoreceptor, or photoreceptor. We can actually fill that part in here. So for both olfaction and gustation, we have a chemoreceptor. For hearing, gravity, acceleration, and rotation, we have mechanoreceptor. So I'm just kind of writing in both boxes, although you could put the word in each box if you wanted to keep it nice and tidy. And of course, we have photoreception just in our last sensation listed here, which is vision. The next column is titled specialized receptor cell. So that's where we're going to name that cell and maybe do a drawing and do a description. So we'll be getting into that as we go through. And then the last is the column that needs the most room. And this is the afferent pathway, which again, afferent is talking about the collection of sensory information and bringing that into the CNS for processing. And so here we need to trace out, we stimulate the receptor cell, how does that travel into the central nervous system, and where is that processed? So we'll be spending quite a bit of time filling in the pathway for each one of these. Stay tuned for our next video focusing on olfaction. And as always, take care of yourselves and each other.